Welcome to our Design Remodel podcast. I'm your host, Amy Gerard, and today we have Matthew Anderson with us.
Hold for applause.
Matthew actually takes the photos of our beautiful projects and makes us look amazing for our website and all of that. Yeah, that's right. So welcome, Matthew.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
And actually, Matthew is having me over, and we're using his super fancy equipment. And that's why it's going to sound so much better.
So if you notice an audio quality difference, I will take the credit for that.
So don't get used to it. Okay, so Matthew, you're a photographer. How did you get started in photography?
It was a hobby for a long time. The first time I ever touched a camera with the intent of making a cool photo was, I think I found my mom's old Pentax camera. It was an old film camera. Remember those kids? And I thought it was cool how you could have more control over how your pictures turned out. Because even before that, I loved taking photos, but I always had, remember those old like little thin cameras? They're almost like visor thin or whatever, but it's all auto. You know, about the only thing the variable you could change was the ISO, how sensitive the film was. But then I always thought it was cool how I was wondering, how do photographers get those blurry shots? You know, like someone's face is in focus, but the background is not. And then I learned, it's aperture, but I can't control on this camera. And then I found my mom's camera and was like, you can do it with this. So I figured that out. Yeah, just did it as a hobby for a long time, even through high school, middle school and high school. I took classes. But those were just fun, kind of like brush off classes because I knew how to do a lot of this stuff. So it was a blast. So went through several years where I didn't own a fancy camera at all. I mean, if you want the full honest truth, the reason I got back into it was we found there was a Groupon for a boudoir photographer.
No.
And my wife wanted to do a boudoir shoot.
No.
And then she wanted to do it. And then she got real uncomfortable with the fact, man, there's going to be someone else taking them. She she thought it was cool to do the thrill of it. And I said, well, how about I do? I'll just buy a camera. And so I bought a camera, but then I set aside the boudoir stuff.
I'm dying. I'm literally crying.
This is the only time I think I've ever.
Oh my gosh.
And so I started diving more into it. And I was always appealed toward headshots. I thought headshots were cool because most everyone is very good looking, no matter how critical they are of them. And a headshot.
Matthew took my headshot this week, and I am judging it before I even see it.
Unlike you, Amy, you walked into the session and you're like, I know I look good. You're not going to have to do hardly any touch up. Yeah, I started doing headshots. That was the first thing I ever, you want to do air quote professional, was headshots. And then I was at, what was it? It was like a karaoke night thing. And a friend of mine did real estate. She sold for Reese Nichols. And she says, oh, yeah, we hire photographers all the time because we need photographers to take photos of our listings. And I was, had a couple whiskey and cokes in me and feeling pretty confident. I was like, you know what? I could do that.
I'm really good.
How hard could it be? I'm a good headshot photographer. Oh, I also had done like fitness photography. Like I knew several people who owned gyms, so they wanted to. So I had shot people. People wasn't that hard. So I was like, how hard could an inanimate object be in a big building? How hard could that be? It was very hard because the first listing I ever shot, the photos were terrible, absolutely terrible.
Did they tell you they were terrible?
Yeah, they told me they were terrible. Because this was my first venture into trying a different genre altogether. And I did set myself up for it. I'm like, hey, let me know what you think. Because she goes, the real estate agent told me that there's a lot of bad photographers out there. She says, if you look at a majority of the listings, a lot of the photos are not very good. So she said, if you're good at it, it's kind of low-hanging fruit. And I look through a lot of them and I'm like, oh my goodness, it is. It really is low-hanging fruit. And so I'm kind of that guy, if I have an interest in something and someone tells me I'm not good at it, I will go full throttle to borderline obsession and figure out not how to just do it okay, I want to be great at it. And so that's how I started to dip my toes into the water of architectural and buildings and interiors, things like that.
And you found you like it more than people?
Yeah, I did. The tipping, because at the point, at when I first started, there was a little bit of crossover, and the tipping point for me to get out of shooting or photographing people was there was a family. I cannot stand shooting families, especially with kids. And I love kids, but when it's for work, forget about it. I was photographing this family down in the River Market, and they had like this little 4 or 5-year-old girl, and my wife, Katie, was assisting me on the shoot. And Katie's real good with kids, better than I am, and was kind of wrangling this one daughter to be like, hey, she was in a terrible, terrible mood. Not my wife, the little girl.
Oh, phew.
And she just was being a pain. And my wife was doing the best job that she could to try to get this kid to smile and cooperate. Well, at one point, I'm posing the family up for a shot, and this little girl darts out in the street. And my wife was the one who stopped the little girl from getting hit by a car. Now, granted, the cars driving down the River Market are very slow, only like 10 miles an hour. But still, if you drive 10 miles an hour and hit a little kid, that's going to do some damage to the kid. And it was such a stressful shoot on top of that. Have that added to it, I just mentally, I went, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. There's people who are tailor-made for photographing families. I can't. It was rough. So that's when I decided, yeah, I'm going to do the real estate thing. Not full time at that point, but like that's all I want to shoot professionally was the real estate stuff.
Well, we're glad you made the transition.
Yeah, me too.
So how do you shoot architectural pictures and make them, what's the trick to making them look so good? Like, what do you do that's different than taking pictures of people? What's your trick?
The biggest composition's key. I'd say if you made a like top 3 or 5 list of what makes a good architecture photo, number 1 is composition. Like, what are you filling in the frame that makes it interesting? And then right under that, a quick second is lighting. You could take a beautiful space, you could make your composition fantastic, really kind of tell an interesting story with a photo. But if the lighting's not great, you're not going to make as much of an impact. So if you have those two combinations of a great composition, what's filling the frame, matched with great lighting, you can grab an amazing image just from that. Some people think it has to do with the equipment and how good you are at editing. I say that's way down the list. It really is. I first started shooting architecture with, I think they still make them, Canon T3i Rebels, Canon Rebels. And there were kit lenses, the lenses that come as a bundle. And I took great images with that. So it's not always, it's like telling a Wolfgang Puck, hey, you make an amazing whatever, chocolate souffle. What kind of pots do you have? It's not a big factor. He can cook with anything. So that's, equipment-wise, equipment's down pretty far down the list.
So you're telling me I can shoot those same
any idiot can do what I'm doing.
Photos with my iPhone?
Yeah,
is that what you're telling
me?
me?
I'm not kidding. You can. The problem is there's a little bit less control with the camera phone. But if you get a good composition and get good lighting, you can take amazing photos with an iPhone. But as you and I have seen, we are always subject to a lot of times the clients that we're shooting towards their schedule. So the ideal lighting might be 6:45 in the evening, but they don't want us coming there because that's when they're making dinner. The only time we can show up is at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So you have to make 2 p.m. in the afternoon look great. That's when it takes a little bit more experience.
How do you manipulate the light at 2 p.m. versus 6:30?
You fake it sometimes. As you've seen, I look like a goof holding the flash at certain points, pointing at things that I remember when we first started working together, I had to like explain.
This is what I'm doing.
Because it's like you're watching me walk around like popping flashes into cabinets and stuff. You're like, what is this guy doing?
Just snap the photo already.
And you see that look on other people's faces, the homeowners' faces, when we're in their houses.
Yeah.
And I'm just, pew, 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 pew. And then you're trying to like explain it. Well, what he does is he goes around.
I do. I try to run like through the dumbed down version because not that they're dumb, but I'm dumb understanding it.
Yeah.
So. And speaking of the pew, 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 I think that would be a good reel.
Pew, pew, pew. Oh, I have versions of that. They're just still photos of me making goofy faces. And
yeah. I feel like a reel is in your future with that noise.
Yeah. Yeah, that would work.
Yeah. So why do you think it's important to have great photography when you're showcasing a home or a building or those types of things?
I think for a company like yours, or if you're a home builder or an architect or interior designer, a majority of the time, these photos, especially on like your website or social media, that's your storefront. Out of all your projects, very few, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent are people who are actually going to see your work in person. A lot of times I'll run through a scenario where if someone wants to hire a remodeling company or they want to hire a custom home builder, I would venture to guess they've probably seen some of your work in person. Maybe it was a neighbor or a friend. Oh, what a beautiful kitchen. Who did your kitchen? So they saw that. But like for Schlegel's done hundreds, maybe even thousands of projects at this point. And so what that person's inevitably going to do is go, I'm interested in Schlegel. Let me look them up. And then they're going to look through Schlegel's portfolio. They're going to, a home builder, an architect, whatever it may be. So then they're going to look at their images. So one, how good of projects have they done? And then the quality of the images as well. I've seen custom home builders that make amazing houses, but all their photos on their site are taken with an iPhone. They're handheld. You can tell the verticals are vertical. The camera's kind of crooked. It's a little tilted. It's the colors aren't right. It's too dark. It's too bright. And so to me, it also speaks of how much a company takes pride in their own work. Yes, I'm not cheap. A lot of great architectural photographers are not cheap. But that being said, it shows how much pride a company takes in their own work to say, you know what, we're okay spending the money to have a professional photographer photograph these projects because they're going to make them look fantastic, a million times better than if you just took them with a camera phone. That was a long-winded answer to, I think, a simple question.
It's okay. We've got like 20 to 30 minutes.
Don't ask why questions because then I just go off.
It's great. I'll have to come up with like 30 other questions.
Exactly.
2 suffices.
How long was your podcast? It was 3 hours long, and I asked them 2 questions. The first was, how are you doing? And how'd you get started in photography? And that was it. We were done.
All right. So Kansas City, do you have aspirations to do more than what's in Kansas City, or is the Kansas City market pretty awesome for architectural photography?
Ooh, wow. I have not been asked that, but man, I have thought about that. I think it depends on what my goals are. I can't say for sure either way, but there have been times, I'll fully admit, going through, like when I first started shooting real estate, I got extremely excited when the Parade of Homes would happen. Parade of Homes, so cool. All these builders are putting their best foot forward. They're spending thousands of dollars to say, hey, look at our work. The longer I do this, the more all those houses start to look the same.
I totally agree with you.
So, which I think it's kind of the 80-20 rule. 80% of the houses on the parade look like the rest of the 80%. There's always a small fraction that really stand out. And then here in Kansas City, the houses that really stand out get their own separate showcase. Every 2 years, they do what's called the Artisan Tour. As far as a variety of things to shoot, I do think Kansas City itself is the Midwest is always behind when it comes to many things, pop culture, just fashion, stuff like that.
What?
Yeah,
Are you telling me that
everyone.
I'm not fashionable here in the Midwest?
This is an intervention, Amy. We've been meaning to talk to you about your outfit choices. So if I wanted to, man, it's tough. Like if I really wanted to push hard for photographing new and interesting residential, even just residential architecture, I would have to move to a different market.
Yeah.
I'd probably have to move somewhere. LA is kind of a mecca for architectural photographers who want to have so many beautiful, interesting houses in such close proximity. That being said, the other side of that coin is a comfort zone, which is Kansas City. So if you can be amazing here in Kansas City, I mean, you've kind of made a great niche for yourself. So yes, a lot of the houses look the same, but then there's also comfort. You walk into a house and you're like, oh, I've shot this floor plan before. I know how to shoot it. So, if gun to my head right now, do I have any plans on moving? No, I don't. But I'm never one to say for sure either way. I'm doing pretty well here in Kansas City. There is still a variety of things to shoot, and builders are not my only clients either.
What?
So yeah, surprise, surprise.
You like shoot for remodelers?
For some remodeling companies. Yeah, imagine that. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy shooting for remodelers here in Kansas City, because I think especially Schlegel's designers push the envelope a little bit more than maybe your average cookie cutter designers, where if someone says, hey, I like A, B, and C, well, your designers go, well, how about A, B, and C, but with a little bit of spice? And that makes Schlegel's projects a little bit different and make them stand out than, say, your average cookie cutter remodeling company who may do a good job, but they just do nice work. Schlegel has this personality and fingerprint on a lot of their work. So that helps out quite a bit. So
thanks for the compliment.
Yeah.
Not that I'm
That's
designing
what you were fishing
them.
for, clearly.
No, I wasn't.
So I think there's a lot here in Kansas City. You have to hunt for it, but it's there. But again, to kind of piggyback off what I was saying before, if I move to a different market, I got to start all over. I got to start from scratch.
Are you the little fish in the big sea, or are you the big fish in the little sea? Because right here, you're probably, like you said, there's not a ton of architectural photographers.
No, there's not. I mean, there's a good hand. I would say there's 10 or less really, really good architectural photographers here in the city. But yeah, if I moved to LA, I'd be competing with hundreds of architectural photographers.
But those shows on Selling Sunset are so
I know.
good.
I know.
Every time that darn show comes on, I'm like, look at that house.
Yeah, I'll call him a friend of mine now. He's a pretty well-known architectural photographer who's based in LA, and just the stuff he gets to shoot, it's unreal. And he just kind of keeps topping himself every single year of just, he'll walk into a $50 million mansion, and he's there for 2 days straight, photographing the whole thing. I'm like, that's awesome. And I get to photograph the split level.
Hey.
No, not talking about you. But just just the average. But again, that split level pays the bills. You can't bite the hand that feeds you.
I mean, you get a splattering of both. You get some amazing stuff, and you get stuff that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to move that mic a little bit closer to you.
That's okay. I laugh really loud, and then it's like a cackle, and I hate it. I always have to edit out my laugh. It's like a cackle. So what is your long-term goals with photography?
I don't know. I don't have, like, for instance, what's happening this year. This year's kind of an interesting year for me, where I am diversifying what I'm doing professionally. Like the friend of mine who's in LA, he's, again, I'll probably mention him a few times. His name's Mike Kelly. If you're in even just the photographer community, a lot of people know who he is. He's put out several tutorials. He's shaped a lot of architectural photographers' careers, mine included. Him and I got together last year. I started writing articles for him on his site. He saw some of my YouTube videos and decided, hey, him and I should partner up, and we'll create a video tutorial series about the business side of architecture photography. There's a lot of tutorials that tell you how to shoot. And a lot of people are great photographers, but there's not a lot of information out there about how to run your business. Mm-hmm. And so Mike is pretty good at that, but the business stuff is scattered. He puts little nuggets at the end of maybe this tutorial, and then he's been on several podcasts. And so we did that. So that hasn't been released yet as of recording this. And then my YouTube channel too is another thing where I literally, Sunday, I got an email. I just crossed the threshold of being able to monetize.
Where's the applause
Yeah.
noise?
Hold for applause. So now I can start generating revenue off of YouTube. I'm not going to be making money hand over fist, but maybe an extra $50, $100 a month.
Who says no to money?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's nice. And so the more videos I put out there, the more views they get. I'm just assuming, again, I'm no air quotes YouTuber. I'm kind of a big deal. It's a big deal if I get like 100 views in a day. Like, yay, I did it.
Hey, we have one video that has 43,000 views, and I think that's
awesome.
It's like the cat's meow. I just think we're amazing. And I shot it on my iPhone. It's not the greatest quality, but hey, I'm pretty proud of it.
Whatever works.
I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah. So, and then I get pinged a lot by other photographers who ask me business questions, because some of the content I've put out there on YouTube concerning architectural photography, some of it has to do with the business side. So, if you put a little bit out there, granted, you're going to get people who are like, oh, well, this guy must know everything. And I really don't. What I know is just from experience. That's it. So I've also kicked around the idea of maybe doing a private club, not master class or a club type thing where, I don't know, maybe
like you pay a fee.
A fee, and then we collectively exchange ideas and stuff, and I might help guide some
consortium.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, I get photographers who ask me, hey, you should do something like that. I'm like, well, I'm too busy, so can't really do it right now.
Right. Too busy making a living.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's like, I need to record a YouTube video. I have to record one. I haven't put one out in like over a month, and that's on my schedule for tomorrow, because recording a video takes like a whole day for me.
Yeah. I'm still, again, mine aren't to the same quality as yours, but I'm still editing one about building cabinets, and I'm super excited about it, but it takes forever to shoot and then forever to edit. So
yeah, that's the other part, is you gotta edit them together. So I don't, when I first went full time with this, man, what was it? I think it was at this point 7-ish years ago, and even just 3 years ago. If someone told me, hey, what do you think 2022 is going to be like? I wouldn't have said this. It's not like crazy radically different, but it definitely was not on the horizon. So like I said, Mike Kelly out in LA, for him to reach out and say, hey, let's do a tutorial. It's like Wolfgang Puck asking, hey, let's do a YouTube series. I mean, it'd blow your mind. That's what it was like to me.
I remember the day that the first time we were on a shoot after he'd contacted you, you were like, Amy. Okay. So, and I was like, I don't know who that is, but I'm really happy for you.
Like, I don't care. And I know that putting that information out there, especially, hey, I'm the other half of a business tutorial on how to run your photography business, that's going to set me up. There's going to be this perception that I'm a know-it-all in a business, and clearly I'm not. But I'm an opportunist. Maybe I can capitalize that on it somehow. So we'll see. Yeah, so I can never say for sure, well, 2023 is going to look like this, and 2024 will look like this. And I quote the Joker a lot from The Dark Knight. The one I use a lot is, do I really look like a guy with a plan? I just do things.
Well, you're doing it well. So congrats.
And if you're good at something, never do it for free.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for, 1, doing my podcast with me.
Yeah, for
2,
sure.
for becoming an architectural photographer and shooting some awesome stuff for our projects. You can go to Remodel again and check out pretty much all that is Matthew's work.
Yeah. Well, even walking into you said it the other day, I've probably said it a few times, walking into your offices is like seeing a shrine of my work. Because especially now in the digital age, you don't see a lot of your work in print. So I walk into the Schlegel showroom and offices, and it's like, oh, there's all my stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's definitely sets good photography. Yeah, I feel sets it apart, and you had done that for us. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you match up good photography with good looking projects, I mean, you can really make a strong impression. Not to poo-poo on anyone who makes cookie cutter homes, but if you have a cookie cutter home, yeah, you can take great photos of it, but it's still not going to stand out. I'm going to make a dated reference, but like you could have Cindy Crawford, who's a beautiful woman, put her in bad lighting. It's not going to be that great of a photo.
Cindy Crawford. I'm thinking the Pepsi commercial.
Yeah, a lot. All your, teenage listeners to this podcast are going to go, who's that? Is she on TikTok?
I don't think we have any teenage listeners on the Design Remodel podcast.
I figure your demographic is mostly 13 to 18-year-olds on this.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totes.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Good. All right. Thanks.